Welcome to the Empowered Women Show, episode number 19.
Welcome to the Empowered Women Show, inspiring women with small voices but big dreams to step up and fulfill their extraordinary potential. And now your host, Casey Lightbody.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowered Women Show. I'm your host, Casey Lightbody, and today's guest is Alice CRAWLEY. Now, Alice's story is one of powerful personal and financial transformation. Her story starts with how she managed to get herself into $185,000 of credit card debt across 2 continents. She was told that she'd have to declare bankruptcy, that she'd never own her own business, and that really life wasn't looking too promising for her. She lived her life at this time in fear, shame, and worry. It was a terrible time, but 5 years later, she's paid off all her debt, and today she now helps people transform their relationship with money and really take control of their money mindset issues to live wealthier, more wonderful lives. And I'm so excited to have our guest, Alice CRAWLEY, on the show today. Welcome to the show, Alice.
Casey, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, I've read your story and I've shared with the audience really about your powerful journey and your personal and financial transformation that you've kind of been on over the course of a period of time. And I'd love to kind of start off, Alice, if we can go back in time and really understand that, that beginning, how you managed to get into $185,000 of debt and really what that time was like. Can you walk us back, take us back to that moment in time and share with us how you managed, what your life looked like at that point?
Absolutely. Look, I was so lost and confused, to be honest with you, Casey. And I felt like a woman who things were going pear-shaped and were going wrong. And I couldn't work out why I was, I knew that I was a bright woman. I was university educated. I felt, that I'd come from a reasonable, home and had a reasonably privileged background. And yet I was completely out of control with money. I was always stressed and anxious about money. I was under earning at the time. So when I came out of university, I sort of went from admin just to very low level jobs and entry level positions. And I really lacked confidence in myself. Mm-hmm. And because I had such low self-esteem and didn't feel proud of, even though I did have achievements and I had done a lot of incredible things and had traveled and worked around the world, I didn't feel like I could own my value and own my worth. I just really didn't feel good about who I was. And I didn't have any money skills. I was actually raised in a home where I wasn't taught about money. It was something that was never supposed to be spoken about. I can remember my mom really clearly saying to me, it's very rude to talk about money. You don't talk about money. And money wasn't something that was openly discussed in our family. And so I thought that you just had to be sort of, people were magically born with an ability to manage money and to manage it well. The worse I felt about myself and the more out of control I felt, the more I spent money. And I would go on these big shopping splurges. I would go on holidays. I would go to 5-star spas. I would get more and more credit cards out because when I would have these little overspending episodes, it would temporarily make me feel good and I would feel, wonderful and I would feel powerful. And then, of course, there was a horrible crash afterwards. And it was really like, a compulsive spiral. And I felt I didn't know how to fix it. I kept saying to myself, I had magical thinking going on. I thought, well, look, I've got all these great ideas, so one day I'm going to, someday soon I'll set up a business and I'll be a multimillionaire and it won't matter anyway. But the problem was I wasn't actually acting on any of those ideas. So I ended up leaving Canada, having racked up about $100,000 of debt on 5 credit cards. I thought, look, I'll start again, move to Australia, start my life all over again. The only problem was when I got here, I was still here and the problems were still here. So I ended up maxing out another $85,000 on another 6 credit cards and the problem just spiraled from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So so how were you feeling at that time? Like, did you keep on just putting it at the back of your mind and pretending that it didn't exist? Or like, what did you really feel like at the time? I mean, I understand, those splurges that made you feel better in that moment in time. And then you said you had those really big crashes. What did it really feel like during that time?
It was very, often it was quite surreal, to be honest with you. It was like I was very disconnected from what was happening. I think there's a lot of denial that goes along with those really compulsive spending patterns as well. And so I would feel, like I just felt like I didn't, I wasn't in touch with what was going on. And somehow, when I was spending money on credit cards, it somehow didn't feel real. I would deny it and I would push it to the back of my mind. Things would generally get, really bad. I'd go on a shopping bender in an evening and I'd wake up the next day and I'd think, no, it's okay because I'm going to turn it all around. And then, I would keep repeating the pattern. So, I felt very anxious. I felt very alone. I felt ashamed. I felt so ashamed of my money issues. And I really didn't feel like I could speak to anybody about it because I looked around me and I saw all of these women who I'd gone to university with or, that I worked with, and they had their own businesses and they were the huge successes. And so I thought, well, I'll just keep propping myself up and, keep up appearances and surely I'll catch up somehow. But really internally, it was complete chaos.
So Alice, what was the turning point? What was the real tipping point for you? Did you get to really rock bottom at some point and realize that you can't carry on like that? What was that?
Absolutely. I got to a complete rock bottom. I realized that these money issues, it wasn't just about the money. It was robbing me of sleep at night. It was eroding my self-esteem. I was so anxious and stressed all the time. And there was this moment of clarity when I realized that this is not just about the money. This is actually impacting everything. And the turning point was that I was at a cafe in the QVB, the QVB, and we were having a cup of tea. And this friend of mine was talking about her coaching business, which she, was getting started, and about all this new inspiration. She was doing NLP and hypnotherapy and all the things that I've, eventually got trained in myself as part of my coaching. And she was telling me about this, and I just had this moment of truth where I realized if I don't share this with somebody, I'm never going to turn things around. And I shared with her my truth. I shared with her this chronic debt. I shared with her the fact that even the boyfriend I was with, who's now my husband, didn't know about this, and that I was living in such secrecy. And, she inspired me and said, look, one step at a time, you can really start to turn things around. And I absolutely remember it was August 2004. And I was sitting having that cup of Earl Grey tea with soy milk in the cafe. And I was like, this stops now. And I just knew that everything had to change. And so that started a whole journey of me just literally going home that night, starting to look at my spending. And I started to train myself in coaching, all sorts of coaching techniques, and various therapeutic modalities, anything that I could get my hands on to really start to shift my thinking around money.
Fantastic, Alice. And it's interesting, you raise a good point there, is that really, I think the moment that you actually open up and get really honest with yourself and then get vulnerable in that moment to be able to share it with other people is really a big shift in mindset, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And I've got to be honest with you, Casey, one of the most why I love what I do, when I really know that I'm doing what I was born to do, is when I hear stories from people who are sharing about what they're going through. And the whole time I was going through what I was going through, I remember I would say to myself that if I'm going through all this, I absolutely have to help people at the other side. And, when I had that turning point, it was really clear to me that my mission was going to be to help other women who had struggled in the same way.
Okay. Oh, wow. So you had that moment in time. That's when you figured out that you really wanted to help other people too, was when you realized for yourself that you actually had to turn that round.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I was very clear on that. I thought, look, this is a very pivotal point in my life.
Yeah.
I turned my money ship around, and I remember thinking, at least the one upshot from being in this absolutely, crippling situation with that is that I'm going to get to the other side of this and I'm going to help other people do the same. And I had such a crystal clear vision, at that time. I was like, this is absolutely why I'm going through what I'm going through, and I absolutely will be able to help other people.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I love that. It's really, and I interview so many women, Alice, and it's such a common theme is that really when you kind of identify what that big why is, you actually have it, I call it a calling, is that you have this deep sense that you've been through a personal experience. And because you've actually lived that experience, you can help other people, come through the journey, maybe a few steps behind you, but they can come through the journey themselves, and that you're there to help them. And it's so often the case when women decide to actually set up their own businesses and become entrepreneurs is that's the reason, that it's been a personal journey, a personal experience of theirs of some sort or shape or form,
Absolutely. And what's so beautiful about that is, and this was a big leap for me when I, actually started to launch the business and put my story out there. There were certainly these points of like anxiety and trepidation, but what always just completely overwhelms me is that vulnerability that I share, the anxiety, the stress, the shame that I felt around money. What's amazing to me is the stories that I hear from people that I work with. And, when I've shared, I had an opportunity to be on the Today Show at the end of last year, and I had people writing in saying, I've never shared this with anybody in my life. My husband doesn't know about this debt. Nobody knows that I'm out of control. And I feel so grateful for each and every one of those people who've shared their story with me. And I feel so clear that, yes, this is what I was put on this planet to do.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah. And that really makes it so worthwhile, doesn't it? When you're getting feedback like that, really knowing that you're making such a big difference in other people's lives.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, it's actually a really good way. I've helped that it's helped propel me along when I go through the really difficult or the dark periods. And I'll still use it today when I think I'm in a really challenging point, with my business, and I'll think, well, it's all grist for the mill. I'll be able to write about this in my book, and at least what I'm going through is going to help somebody else down the track. And it really, I really pull on that inspiration when I'm at my low ebbs as well, because even though I've had this huge turning point and I've set up a business and I'm very, very blessed with amazing opportunities and, financial freedom, there are still a lot of challenges. It's life doesn't stop being difficult.
Absolutely. Well, that's how I was going to touch on that. Actually, we all know as entrepreneurs that it's definitely not a straight road to success. It's filled with many ups and downs, Alice. And, you shared your story around the whole issue of money, but really, since launching your business, have you, what has been one of your biggest challenges now that you've overcome your mindset around money? And as you say, you've got financial freedom now. What's been one of your major challenges at being an entrepreneur?
To be honest with you, I actually feel like it's keeping the right focus and staying very clear, about my business. About my business path and what my path is, because there is an overwhelming list of opportunities. There's so many opportunities out there for women entrepreneurs, which is absolutely fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But it can be really challenging when you're an excited personality like myself. I want to do everything. I really want to do everything. And I think this, and this. And actually staying focused and staying committed to particular opportunities and selecting the right opportunities that are really going to work for your business. I would say that's something that I've got to, hone and focus on all the time. I'm always having to come back to, okay, who am I really supporting and what's the purpose of my business and how do I stay focused on that day to day?
That's fantastic advice, Alison. It's actually something that comes up very often is that how do I get clarity and focus and keep focused? And so do you have a kind of strategies and some tips around that, that you shared that you kind of focus on what are you trying to achieve, who are your clients and what do they need? But do you have any kind of day-to-day tips to keep you focused or, setting monthly goals, or do you have any kind of strategies around that?
Yeah, sure. So I would say the things that I keep in mind, firstly, is it's really important that I stay connected to my customers and my clients, and I know what it is that they need. And that's been really important to me, because I think that, it's easy to get caught up and have these ideas about, I want to do this, this, and this. And actually, I revisit every day what's coming through from my clients and customers. What do they want help with? How do they need to be supported? So, rather than getting ideas about, I need to do this, this, and this, I actually listen to what it is that people are asking me, to make sure that, I'm really being of value and I'm really supporting in the best way that I can. I also do, practical things, like each day I get very clear on what my priorities are for the day, because I know that all too quickly, my day will start and other emails and calls will come in, and people will be putting their priorities on me. So it's really important that I'm clear on my priorities at the beginning of the day, and that I'm clear on what's important to get done. It's, and someone like myself, as a very excited personality, I find it very easy to get distracted. So it's really important that I've got a list of priorities. I put them in my calendar and I revisit them throughout this. So I usually check in the morning and get my priorities straight and set my intention for the day. And then I'll revisit around midday to see where I'm at. And then in the evening, I review the day and see how I've gone with those priorities.
Fantastic. I'm a big routines girl myself, and I'm easily distracted too. I think any entrepreneur, we're creative and we've got big ideas and that kind of thing. It's very easy to get distracted. So I totally agree with you. It's so important to have a routine, as you say, like a daily ritual that you follow, Alice, I think.
Yeah.
So I'd love to kind of dive in. So you started this, you had this moment of realization when you were having your cup of Earl Grey tea, and that was the moment that you decided that you really had to do something about this spending habit that you had. And at the same time, you had this vision that, you'd lived through the journey and that you needed to overcome it to really help other people in the same situation. So what were the steps that you took next, Alice, in terms of your journey to overcome this debt?
Well, the three of the key steps was firstly, I made a clear and conscious decision, that I was going to turn things around. So there were probably, and then I actually started negotiating. I realized I had to negotiate with my creditors, because one of the things I had been doing is avoiding these creditors. They'd been calling me. I was getting calls in the middle of the night from creditors in Canada. So I realized I was going to have to be proactive and take control and actually go back to all of these creditors and be clear with them around what it is I could pay and the situation that I was in. So the other step I took was getting really clear advice. I went for free legal advice because I wasn't in a position to pay for it. I got all the free legal advice I could about my credit card consumer rights and found out what I could and couldn't say, and learned some amazing things, which all of these resources I use in my programs now. Like, for example, that if you put an offer in writing to a creditor, it's very difficult for them to refute that, because they're legally obliged to consider written offers. Right. So I got all this information, everything that I could, went back to my creditors to agree my minimum payments, and then I started shifting my thinking to my overspending and started to develop some much healthier, nurturing habits that would allow me to feel comforted and supported without spending all the money. So, so I developed a list of things that I needed to do on a daily basis to really take care of myself, because it was very clear to me that I was overspending because I was emotionally distraught. So I had to come up with new soothing routines and listening to music and doing yoga and, finding meditation classes and learning to love my bubble baths at home. And that. But another very big step I took was I had to address the under-earning, because I was earning less than $50,000. And the turning point on that was when this friend of mine who had started this process of studying, all these various coaching modalities, all she had to say to me was, that if you're earning less than $50,000 a year, it's because you believe that's all you're worth. And it was this just light bulb moment where I realized, oh my goddess, it's because that's all I believe I'm worth. So I made a commitment to myself that I was going to double my income because, and again, this friend, I mean, she said, well, think about what you want to be earning. And I thought, well, that's crazy. I mean, I can't just, double my income. Well, I actually managed to double my income within 2 months. I made a commitment because I knew I wasn't going to be able to repay this debt if I wasn't earning at least that. I had mantras, I had affirmations all over the house.
Okay.
I journaled every day. I researched the market and started to map how the skills that I was using in my current job, how they aligned with roles that were at the amount over the 100K mark that I wanted to be earning, and started going from interview to interview, and it took dozens of interviews. But I absolutely just totally shifted that belief about myself. And as I say, within 2 months, I was on a salary that was double my original salary.
That's a huge topic, Alison. So, I mean, what an incredible result. And I'd love to touch on that again, because I think that whole idea of devaluing yourself and not recognizing your worth is a huge topic, especially for women entrepreneurs starting out. And so I'd love to come back and revisit that again. But you touched on a really interesting point that I'd like to highlight as well. And so you mentioned that you actually proactively started contacting these creditors when you realized that that you needed to start taking some action, which must have taken some incredible amount of courage, especially given, you were the type of person where you said you didn't value yourself incredibly to start off with, and that was the reason for a lot of your spending habits as well. So, where did you find that courage, and how did you, when I consider that, it's really it is very proactive, the steps that you took. And so where did that come from? How did you figure out, and where did you find that courage?
Well, I would say one of the things that really allowed me to just start shifting that was when I had that clear vision of my why and that I was going to turn things around, I suddenly realized anything that was getting in the way of that happening, I had to take a really hard, honest look at it. And what I realized, I'd actually asked myself, when I made that decision to start calling them proactively, I thought, which is going to be more difficult, not realizing my dream or making this phone call to the creditor? And I realized that whatever fear and anxiety I was feeling about speaking to the creditor, that was so small in comparison to the vision that I had for the life that I knew that I was destined to live and the business I knew that I was destined to have. And so I also had to accept that there was I had this shift, and I realized I'm going to have to accept that, yes, it's going to be terrifying. Yes, I'm going to be anxious when I ring the creditors. But I also realized that there would be some power and there would be energy that would come out of that, and that actually the fear and anxiety wouldn't be any worse than the anxiety I was feeling from not taking action. So it was like this, I suddenly had this clarity of hang on, yes, it's going to be terrifying, but is it going to be any more terrifying than being in $185,000 of debt and having creditors ring me from all over the globe saying that we're going to garnish your wages and, all of these threats and badgering that I was experiencing? So, there was a moment where I weighed that all up and I thought, I have to take the leap. And something that's been really important for me, and this has been true for my business launch and lots of big steps I've taken in my business and throughout my life, is that feel the fear and do it anyway. That I'm like, yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's like I heard somebody use the analogy of, personal training. When you go to a trainer and they overwork your muscles and you're so sore the next day, but you're stronger and you're more toned. And so I realized I was going to have to start using these muscles and actually start speaking up and speaking my truth and being strong about what was going to work for me and what wasn't going to work for me. And it was going to be uncomfortable and there were going to be tears. And that was okay, because that's what was going to be required to get really strong in my truth and to hear my voice and to really, to be heard.
That's incredible. I so agree with you. And it's something I think that everyone really, really needs to take on board, is that it's, I think Alice, we touched on this a little bit offline, is that when you really connect with your big why, those fears really do kind of diminish, because you've got your vision that you're working towards, and it's just so important to you that really at the end of the day, and as you said rightly as well, is the fear that you're experiencing anyway is probably worse than the fear that you imagine having when you were speaking with those creditors anyway. So That's great advice. I love that. And so, Alice, so you mentioned, okay, so you dealt with the overspending part of it, and then you then recognized that you actually had to look at the whole idea of under-earning too, which, it's a big topic. How did you come to that realization, once you realized that you had your overspending under control? How did was there a kind of moment in time that you recognized, okay, now I'm actually not earning enough to be able to pay off this debt?
Yes. Well, that was when I had the moment when I actually sat down and actually looked at what I needed to pay back.
Okay.
I realized, wow, this is, and actually for the first time in, over a decade of not dealing with my money, it was the first time I'd actually sat down and started looking at the numbers. And that was, a big obstacle.
A big thing. Yeah.
Sit down because I was in this money fog, and I needed to get clear. So when I looked at the numbers, and I actually set a goal for myself that I wanted to have the debt paid off in 5 years. I was very clear about that because I knew I wanted to get paid off. They were saying I would have to declare bankruptcy to do that. I knew I wanted my own business. That was not an option. I set that goal for myself. And when I actually looked at the numbers, I was like, well, I need to start by doubling my income. And, so I made that.
So that was the first step, is really setting that goal.
Absolutely. I set the goal for what it was that I wanted to be earning.
Yeah.
And then what I realized after this friend, with this conversation I had in my said, well,
she's a great friend, by the way.
She's a great absolutely. I've thanked her many, many times for her inspiration. And when she said to me, look, you'll be earning what you believe you're worth, I realized that, okay, so I want double my income. I'm going to have to change my beliefs around that. So I did all of the kind of classic, coaching techniques that, people use, but look, they work. I had affirmations up around my house about, it's very important for me. And I found it really works to have affirmations in the present tense. So I actually had cue cards up around my house that said, I am so grateful to be earning over $100,000 a year. I journaled every morning, writing out at least 25 times that I am worthy of a salary of more than $100,000.
Okay, so you did. Okay.
I also started canvassing friends and family for feedback about what they thought was great about me, what they thought my skills and talents were. And when I started doing that, of course, because I was still struggling with the confidence thing initially, I thought, oh, this is a self-interested exercise. It was so powerful. And the feedback and I asked for it in writing and verbally when I met with my friends and, my family members, and the feedback I was getting from people and previous colleagues. People were saying to me, we've always thought you were amazing. We've always thought you were so intelligent, could never understand why you were taking these lower jobs. You're so much better than that. So I started collecting more and more evidence that indicated to me that I absolutely am worth so much more, So, and the other thing that was really important for me to hold on to during those times, because it wasn't like, snap decision, yes, I'm worth all this money now. And the low self-esteem was behind me. It took time to develop it and, really get strong in that position that I was worth a lot more. But what I found helped was that I would remind myself that I needed to pay attention to what other people were saying was great about me. And in those moments of doubt, I would come back to my affirmations. I would come back to my journaling. I would come back to the evidence that I had from people around me that, yes, I am worth it. And yes, there's going to be times where I'm self-doubting, but I need to just name that self-doubt for what it is and keep moving forward and stay focused on my goals. So
that's fantastic.
That's what really
and Alice, have you got any resources? Like, did you come across any resources? Like, I'm actually reading Think and Grow Rich at the moment by Napoleon Hill, which is great classic, But do you have any resources around that really helped you with those shifts and those strategies?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I think, a lot of the tips and strategies were things that I got from the coaching, and the therapeutic modalities that I started to study. So a lot of those, came through that. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was another book that I read, which talks a lot about the beliefs. And that book was wonderful in terms of learning about shifting money mindset. And that was actually part of what inspired me to develop a business that was dedicated to women, because because I realized that, it was talking about, issues absolutely for all people. But I realized that there was there was something very specific about the challenges that, that I was experiencing as a woman, that there's conditioning that still hangs around, which sort of suggests that, men are the breadwinner. I know these are old values, but still, people like myself, I'm in my early 40s. I was raised with those old school values.
Absolutely, yeah.
When my mum was brought up, she was brought up to believe that she could maybe have a short-term career as a teacher or a nurse before she had kids. But, basically you marry a rich husband. And that was the belief that he was raised with.
Absolutely, so, yeah. That's incredible learnings in that journey, Alice. I think it's so insightful and so courageous of you to take yourself on like that and really identify, the biggest issue, and then realize that you've been through that journey, that you can help other people now. So you've done all the work, and so you've launched your coaching business. Can you tell us a little bit more about the actual business, your business itself, and what you offer and how you actually help specifically women?
Yeah, absolutely. So my business, I offer a number of different support programs. I have, my first online program is actually launching at the end of June, and that's all around women negotiating, a working woman's guide to negotiating in the workplace. So I'm going to be talking very specifically about addressing under-earning, asking for more money, going for promotions, and even techniques that can be used for, negotiating with your husband to do less housework and things like that.
That's great.
But in terms of online free resources, I have released more than 20 episodes of Alice TV. And in my Alice TV episodes, I talk about very practical tips and strategies that people can use for their money mindset. I also have an ebook, which is the Wonder Book, which is an ebook which is actually launching for sale this week. So that's going to be available online. And I've got a free Money Style Finder quiz on the website as well. So people can do this Money Style Finder quiz, and they can actually find out what money personality they have. And it's split into 4 key quadrants. And the thing that I'm really excited about with this opt-in, and then they get a report at the end, which actually helps them identify some of their specific patterns based on which quadrant they fall on. And it gives them particular exercises and helps them identify where their weak spots might be and how they can play to their strengths, and gives them action points. And the reason I'm really excited about the Money Style Finder quiz is that we're going to be doing programs later on that will actually build on, developing a support program based on your quadrant. But it's a very, very powerful tool because it's based on your economics. And so it's actually been developed with some fantastic research behind it. So the feedback that I get from people when they've done this report is, oh my God, how did you just find a system to ask 12 questions and absolutely nail the way that I behave with money? So, those sorts of tools and this Money Style quiz helps people get acquainted with their relationship with money so that they can start to change it.
That's fantastic. It sounds like an awesome tool, Alice. So where can we find that online? Where's that tool?
So go to alicecrawley.com. Okay. And when you go to alicecrawley.com, you'll see the option right on that front landing page to actually sign up for that free quiz.
Fantastic. Well, I'll be sure to add the links to the show notes so everyone can find that, but it sounds phenomenal. And I love those kind of things. I do. There's a few of them that are out there. Nothing that I found around money and mindset, which is fantastic, but it's very insightful. I think if you can kind of get something that really nails exactly, because each of us, we've all got our different kind of experiences around money and economics and things like that. So to be able to identify that and really figure out how you act around money, I think is very, very useful. So it sounds fantastic.
Yes, thank you.
And lots of exciting developments with your business too. Wow, there's lots on your plate. So you've got a program, an ebook coming out.
That's right. And there'll be 2 more online programs coming out later in the year. One is Overcoming Overspending, and the other one is Breaking Through Under Earning. I'll be starting my professional live speaking events in a couple of months. So I'm going to be doing some live speaking events, which I'm very excited about, and also going to be doing a live workshop later in the year. And I'm looking to get my book, the outline for my book pulled together later in the year as well. So I'm very excited about that. And we've got a joint joint venture starting with a wonderful American company, actually, Plaid for Women. And so they're based in Texas, and they do some wonderful campaigns around women working collaboratively and supporting female entrepreneurs. So
what's that one, Alice? I didn't catch the name.
Plaid for Women.
Okay.
Plaid for Women, yeah. So it's an American company, and it's really an information hub for women with all sorts of resources related to any of the sort of challenges, you can imagine that women have in today's society.
Fantastic.
So they're doing a really wonderful campaign at the moment called No Mean Girls, which is really talking about women supporting other women and being collaborative. So, we're very excited to be doing a joint venture with them. And we've got some other joint ventures in the pipeline as well. So it's a very, very exciting time.
That sounds incredible. And I'll definitely be checking that out because, as you know, Empowered Women Revolution is all around collaboration. So that's fantastic. Women supporting women. Go sisterhood, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. And also waiting to hear back we did an interview for a current affair last Friday. So there'll be a piece on current affair this week. So
congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, it's just incredible. And just like everything that you are doing at the moment, Alice, really shines the spotlight on what's possible when you do really take yourself on, have a vision, have a big dream, and just take yourself on and take the action steps necessary to work towards that vision. It's incredibly inspiring. And, you touched a little bit on what entrepreneurship means to you, but I'd love to just kind of go back to that now and really find out from you, like having taken the plunge and launched your business, now be presented with all these amazing opportunities. What does it really mean to you to be an entrepreneur, and especially a female entrepreneur?
Casey, for me, being a female entrepreneur is absolutely about having the privilege to support other people on the planet. Like that is why I'm in business and what I'm doing. So, so it's about supporting people, have similar stories and helping them on their mission. It's also about freedom. It's about financial and personal freedom. And of course, that's something that I experienced firsthand myself on my entire journey. And what I realized very early on in the process, that it wasn't just about the money, that the financial stress and anxiety, it impacted everything in my life, So the financial freedom leads to the personal freedom. And being a woman entrepreneur, it's also about being able to speak your own truth and have your voice in the world and have your unique voice be heard. And that's what I think is so special about it. And it really is. It's a privilege and it's an honor. And I feel very, very grateful to be on this journey. And there's plenty of times, as I said, when things, are really, really challenging. I still have low ebbs. I still have dark patches. It's, and something that I love from a Tibetan book that I read years ago is they say, it never gets darker than midnight, and in those times when things are really tough, you've got to just remind yourself, yes, it is going to be difficult, but keep the focus on the vision, keep the focus on the goals. And no matter how difficult it gets at the end of the day and how tired I am in the evening, I get up each morning, I revisit my goals, I revisit my vision. And, I feel grateful for having the opportunity to be a female entrepreneur, to have that freedom and to have the opportunity to support people all around the globe.
Oh, Alice, that's just so beautifully and eloquently said. I just love what you say then. Really, it gives me goosebumps to know that, so many of us women are on the same mission together. It's my honor and privilege to be able to shine a spotlight on you and share your journey, So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Casey. What a wonderful opportunity. I'm so grateful to you and, to all the listeners. And, I feel so strongly and so passionate about, all of us banding together and supporting each other and lifting each other higher and higher and helping each other really find our truth and find our voice. And, the other thing I would say that's so important that I've learned on the journey is how important it is to let yourself be vulnerable and share honestly what your truth is, because I was terrified when I took the leap and went public with my story. I was thinking, oh my God, what are people going to think? What's my family going to think? And what I found is those moments of truth and honesty, that's when I've really had the opportunity to connect with people on a deeper level. It's really
absolutely. It's so worth it to really speak your truth, as scared, as scary and as, horrific as it might be. Really, it's that vulnerability that really helps you connect with those other people, the other women, and really be able to share your truth. So I totally agree with you with that, Alice. Now we dive in at the end of the show. I normally just do a little quick lightning round, just as a little boost of inspiration for my listeners. And there's a couple of questions that I ask. One is, what is your favorite life or business quote and why?
My favorite quote is one that I learned when I was living in Japan. It's a Japanese saying, and it says, "Before there can be brilliance, there must be chaos." And
I love it.
It helps me all the time. I mean, it's so pertinent to my journey because, of course, it was complete chaos before I found clarity and before, I got on the path that I'm now on. But it's just a wonderful, beautiful reminder that, sometimes things need to get a little bit crazy. They need to get a little bit messy. You need to get off balance in order to find your path and find your truth and find your calling. And, I say that to myself whenever I find myself, because I still have, times when I go through that I feel overwhelmed and confused and stuff. And I think, in those moments of chaos, just remember it's going to lead to brilliance. I hold on to that one tightly.
That's a great quote. I love that. And I think also to add on that, Alice, is really, I think, again, when we talk about the peaks and troughs, is that there's moments of chaos throughout your journey. It's not just right at the beginning. I think it's that, and really it's when you're going through that chaos, what I call the thrash, is actually when you come out of that thrash, it's almost like you've taken your business or yourself to that next level. So embracing the chaos and embracing the thrash is a really good thing because there's brilliance on the other side of that, right?
Absolutely. That's a beautiful expression. I love that. I'm going to use that word if that's okay, Casey. I love that. It is a thrash.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely it. The more you can embrace it and really accept it for what it is, and honor and acknowledge it, you come out the other side absolutely shining every time.
Fantastic. Now, I know there are so many women out there that we all admire and really look up to, but do you have a favorite woman entrepreneur that or actually anyone for that matter, that any woman that really inspires you specifically, Alice, and why?
I would say, someone who comes to mind for me is Lisa Messenger. I think she's an absolute powerhouse. And what I love about her is that, she had the courage. I mean, she had a wonderful, successful career in her own right before she set up her business. But she took that leap of faith, and has really put herself out there, established this, incredible publishing company at a time when, she would have been hearing that, oh my God, that market is dead and that's not happening. She has such a unique voice. She's so uber supportive of people and everything that she says. And she's just a huge success story. And, knowing a little bit about where she was at when she took the leap and she transitioned careers and didn't have funding for her business, it's just a wonderful inspiration and a wonderful story to be reminded of. And I think she's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I'm a big fan too. I think she is incredible. I've been following her on Facebook actually this week because she's in New York at the moment and with some amazing opportunities arising. And I'm just like, I really look up to her. She really is an inspiration. And just as you say, really speaks her truth in just such an honest and authentic way, I think, Alice. So I'm a big fangirl too. Alice, it's been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your honesty, your insights, your journey with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
It has been an absolute privilege, honor, and I am so grateful to have been interviewed, Casey. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really grateful. And also, I just want to say what you're doing with your business is absolutely amazing. You and your business are a huge inspiration to me. So thank you.
Fantastic. Alice, well, thank you so much.
Okay. Take good care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And that wraps up another episode of the Empowered Women Show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you have a chance and you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean the world to me if you would head on over to iTunes and leave me an honest rating and review of the show. That way, you'll help boost rankings and really shine the spotlight on these amazing women guests. You'll find the link in the show notes over at www.empoweredwomenrevolution.com. Thank you so much and see you next time.